right, good afternoon. Oh, if we're going to be friends, we can do this a little bit better. Good afternoon. Oh, now we're friends. Fantastic. This is a really exciting panel. I mean, there's very few companies anywhere, let alone the Canadian ecosystem, that within 5 years exit to 9-figure amounts. And this is a really exciting story. And you have all of the pivotal players who have been a part of that acquisition. So we're going to dive into the story, and we're going to sort of start to pull out some of the key lessons and insights that might be helpful for some of the founders here. And then we're going to throw it to you and let you actually ask the questions that you really want to know. So start thinking about the things that might be helpful for you. I also owe it to this panel because in our earlier conversations, they really wanted to stress to the audience that they didn't believe you should build a company for acquisition. So we're going to start with that giant caveat that this is not a driving force. This is but one of many options and something to think about. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Sam, who's the founder of Maluuba, which you just heard about, an artificial intelligence startup that is really pioneering deep learning and now for Microsoft. So Sam, you had a pretty wild roller coaster. Could you tell us the story?
From start to finish, or that's a pretty long story. It's going to take like a few hours, so okay. I'll try to summarize in as fast as I can. So I grew up in India till I was 18 years old, and I was very protected by my parents. Obviously, you can expect Indian parents, whatever you've seen in television shows or whatever. I never went out to do anything, and then they booked me a ticket to Canada. They filled out the forms for University of Waterloo. And I was enrolled in computer science, and I didn't know anything about computers, by the way. I didn't even know how to use Google properly or Hotmail or whatever, Yahoo Mail, something existed before. So I was taught all, that was just before I left by my younger brother. And after that, I was enrolled in computer science, first year in computer science. I think the first week, everyone used to finish assignments like within a few hours, and I took a few days, and I used to come home, and I used to complain to myself, and be like, I don't belong here. From there, I tried very hard every single moment. For the last 10 years, whatever. I came in 2006, September. And then I met this, I was in this session where Bill Gates was giving a talk in University of Waterloo. And I was very inspired by that talk. I didn't even know the word startup or CEO or entrepreneur or whatever. I was very inspired by that talk that I'm like, you know what, this guy sounds like someone who can be my role model. And I had to hustle, by the way. I was very shy guy. I had to hustle to get on stage because to get to see Bill Gates. There was only 750 tickets and more than 5,000 people had applied for that. So that was my first time I hustled. And then 2011, when I graduated, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to start a company. I used to live in the closet of my friend. Like, I actually didn't have money. And a friend of mine, I don't know if he's in the audience or not, he booked me a ticket to San Francisco. Just like, you should just go there. You're so passionate about starting this company, Maluuba, and one-way ticket. And I stayed in his friend's house for like a few weeks. And then I met Samir in a Samsung venture session or something. Actually, I met through someone else, and then luckily we hustled and we pitched and all that, and Samsung decided to invest in early 2012. And then we released an app in the App Store, whatever, and it got more than 500,000 downloads. Everyone was so excited, team was excited, super pumped. But then we went to the Valley, and for 3 years we struggled to raise money. And Brian was one of our first investors from Samsung, and then, I'll let them tell their part of the story, why they invested. Otherwise, this session is going to go on forever. And yeah, we had a roller coaster ride. We had in 2015, we ran out of money, not once, not twice, but 3 times in 2013, almost bankrupt. And pulling yourself out of those tough situations is what built character in me and my executive team and all my champions from investors and all that. So, and then 2015, an interesting story was there's a big tech company that wanted to buy us as well. And they got bought recently by someone else. So I can't mention the name, but you can guess whoever it is. And I met the CEO. They were very excited. Andrew's here, my engineering manager. He knows. He was part of that discussion we had. And they interviewed all my employees, and the deal was going to go through. There was only 3 weeks left for the deal to be announced to public, and then they pulled out of the acquisition. And it was like the worst feeling ever, because all the employees are excited. Oh, you're going to make all these money, stock options, blah, blah, blah. And then at that time, I had told no to Brian as well. So I was going to raise investment, and Brian from Nautilus Ventures was going to invest in me. And then, but because this company wanted to buy us, I told no. So I was running out of money again in 2015. So, and then I called up Brian, and I'm like, Brian, do you want to invest in me? Sorry, the acquisition didn't happen. And luckily he did. And then there's a whole another story of how we sold to Microsoft and stuff. But a lot of hustling through Samir and Brian and stuff. And we finally sold for 9 figures. Pretty decent return, but it's not that easy. And that's that's one of the points I want to stress. So that's kind of the high-level summary of, sorry it took so long, but that's a high-level summary of how the journey was over the last 5.5 years.
So before we throw to Brian and Samir, it would be helpful, can you talk a little bit about the pivots that happened? Because you were really focused on a different aspect of your business, and you pivoted. Can you just sort of walk us through what the original vision was?
Sure, we pivoted 3 times. So first time in 2012, we built this app, and it was kind of Siri for Android. And there was no such thing for like Siri and iPhone for the Android. So you can talk to your phone. And we got 500,000 downloads, but we went to the VC. We were so pumped. And Brian introduced me to 50, 60 VCs and in the Silicon Valley. And at the end, no one invested. And that was, again, a tough time. So we decided, you know what, we're going to start licensing our technology to some of the big manufacturers. And we did that in 2013, 2014. So that was the second pivot. So we licensed, instead of being a consumer model, we licensed to like B2B kind of. So we licensed to Samsung, LG, BlackBerry, all these guys, made millions in revenues. And then we figured out 2014, 2015, okay, this doesn't work because there's a cap in the amount of money you can make, and the business running out of money again. And then 2015, again, once this big company had put us in the abyss and all the employees wanted to leave or whatever, that's when the most innovative thing happened. We decided, you know what, we're going to be pioneers in deep learning. We're going to be the first guys in the world who's going to formulate a team which is going to innovate in deep learning for natural language understanding. We took a big bet. We could have gone to Toronto easily, Waterloo to Toronto, like an hour. But we decided to go to Montreal. And everyone was like, oh, Toronto, there's Jeffrey Hinton and all that. Then, no, we decided to go to Montreal. We set up a partnership with Yoshua Bengio. That's another story. How did we get him on to partner with us? Like, I had to basically fly into Portugal in the expectancy that he's going to be there for 1 hour in this session, and I basically barged in. And anyway, that's a whole story by itself. So we got Yoshua Bengio. We set up the biggest lab in Montreal for deep learning research. And yeah, that's kind of so we pivoted 3 times, and that's the summary.
I like that he makes it sound accidental. Like, oh, and then we just figured out, deep learning. It's okay. So Brian, can you talk to us a little bit about the story from your angle and where you came in and where you saw the value?
Yeah, sure. Brian from Nautilus Venture Partners, as Sam mentioned, I was with the Samsung Ventures and then did the initial seed financing on Maluuba back in 2012. I think they kind of barely graduated out of college. Had 4 co-founders there at the time. So, I mean, at the end, Sam, I think, put kind of generally kind of sort of positive sort of experience all together, but there was a lot of stories behind this journey that went so many places in the wrong direction, and then we had to fix that at each course of the this journey, long time altogether. So invested in 2012, early 2012 with basically, we like the technology platform of what they're doing. Invested on those 4 guys out of University of Waterloo. So a couple of interesting, sort of the observation that I had. I went to the meeting, the company in the Waterloo warehouse. No air conditioners, but that's fine. But the very first thing that I saw was he mentioned about Bill Gates. They had these pictures of the superheroes like Batman, Superman, and whatnot. And then I think you guys had the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs there. So, from them, that was an inspiration, especially for Sam and then some of the founders. Hey, we're basically treating Steve Jobs and, Bill Gates as kind of superheroes. And they had those kind of sort of inspirations and vision. I think ultimately that was the, sort of the key success factors to get the company to this far. I mean, for the last 5 years, company was about to go out of cash a couple of times. Sometimes not necessarily making the right tactical decisions and whatnot, approaching customers and whatnot. But at the end, the Sam and the key management and the teams, they share the common vision, and then have this sort of the drivers to get the company to certain place they want it. 5 years is a long time, and I've seen so many companies, extremely smart guys, maybe serial entrepreneurs or first-time entrepreneurs, but a lot of times, they have these challenges when things are not going the right direction. They sort of trying to become over smart, and then we have other solutions to bypass these struggles, and then we'll get. And then whether they actually knew this one or not, the company is just stuck together to okay, this is what I want to do. I'll just stay with it, and then. I don't want to disclose too much. Sam basically didn't take any salaries for the last 5 years to get to this point, which was by far, I invested about 40 plus companies. He was, the second lowest salary that I saw out of a CEO is about 3 times more than what he made through these 5 years. So that kind of tells you a lot. 100 plus VCs that we met, nobody is really committed to this investment. These are all sort of the messages that you get as sort of the entrepreneurs and founders. Maybe my luck is sort of done. I don't have a whole lot of sort of, but he had a vision, and sometimes I had to crack that, vision versus delusions sometimes. But we made that happen, and then I guess the one answer is to be successful and then to become quiet. You really had to have something right, vision set up at the very first, and then just stay with it. I guess you mentioned about pivoting. That's the pivoting in terms of sort of technologies to get the solutions, the features to get to where we want, deep learning versus machine learning and whatnot. But I don't think the company actually ever pivoted in terms of the ultimate user experience that we want to provide in terms of NLU, NLP. So company just stay through that vision from the beginning to the acquisition.
So let me start by saying, if there are any Hollywood producers or publishers in the audience, come talk to Sam about the rights to the screenplay or writing his book, because this really is one of those super, super inspirational stories that, maybe you watch Silicon Valley, the show, and, maybe a similar journey. But as Sam mentioned, I met him when he first came to Samsung. But the journey that the two of us went on was completely unexpected. And it just happens that I'm at Microsoft Ventures investing in machine learning startups. But Sam's path to being acquired by Microsoft, it's not, it wasn't me driving that acquisition. It was the fact that he and I worked together. I helped him on the business development side at Samsung, whereas Brian was helping on the investment side. We were looking at, hey, how can Maluuba work with Samsung to build interesting product propositions for Android? And then I was at Qualcomm after that, and it just happened we were looking at deep learning for embedded platforms. And I had known Sam, we kept in touch, and it just serendipitously happened to be that our interests were aligned, that Maluuba was interested in things like embedded platforms for cars and doing natural language understanding for controlling cars. And that was an area of interest for Qualcomm. And so we happened to work on a demonstration together to highlight the capabilities of what Qualcomm was doing on the silicon side and what Maluuba was doing in terms of natural language understanding. We showed that off at Mobile World Congress. And it was a long process to try to get some kind of a business deal with Qualcomm, which at the end of the day actually never happened. But what ended up happening is that demonstration that we built together and showed off at Mobile World Congress got the attention of Microsoft. And that led to an introduction to Microsoft. Microsoft's interests in Maluuba were not for the automotive space. It was for the reasons for understanding text, doing machine reading, machine comprehension of large amounts of text. But that demonstration showed what the capabilities were that Maluuba was bringing to the table, the vision that they had, and the kinds of problems they were capable of solving. And so I think my journey with Sam, from the first time I met him, the conviction he had in what he wanted to do. And as he said, he had a one-way ticket to Silicon Valley, and he's now in the center of the world in terms of fundraising and startup founders and startup innovation. And he wasn't intimidated. The very first time we met him, here's this young kid straight out of school, And the level of confidence and conviction he conveyed in the mission that he wanted to accomplish, how much money he wanted to raise, why he wanted to raise, the team he was building, I mean, that impressed me right off the bat. And that was the one thing that's kind of his, has been his North Star all along. It never wavered. He had no shortage of obstacles to overcome, no shortage of people who were naysayers saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be CEO. You need adult supervision. But he didn't relent. And, as he said, there was times when they were literally, at death's door in terms of not having any more money, but he persisted. And I think that is just an absolutely incredible story of kind of the core of the purest form of visionary entrepreneurship and realizing that vision. But it goes hand in hand with also being smart about seeing opportunities in the market. Realizing that natural language understanding, the future was about deep learning. And that meant building a world-class research team that were experts in deep learning and language understanding, having the courage and conviction to approach a leader in the field like Yoshio Bengio and ask him to be your advisor. That takes guts to do that. And ultimately, to go back to the original point of the panel, how to get acquired, whether you're getting acquired or you want to go public, whatever your exit's going to be, if you are a company that is saying AI, machine learning, deep learning is a core part of your proposition, having that very strong talent on the research side, I think to Sam's credit, recognizing that, being able to recruit and retain talent in that space is part of the attraction for why Microsoft thought that this was the right acquisition for them.
You guys have touched on a lot of things around grit, resilience, and obviously, seeing where the opportunity is, and to use an overused Canadian expression, skate to where the puck is going. So, but you touched on something that's interesting, was that the partnership with Samsung enabled you to demonstrate value. And I think that's really interesting because a lot of the founders in this room will probably have been advised not to pursue big partnerships and things like that because big companies have lots of time and money. They can waste your time when you don't have a lot of resources and you don't have a lot of time and you need to be focused. So can you talk a little bit about that experience and maybe pull any of the lessons around strategically partnering?
Yeah, so maybe I can talk about, so one of the partnerships we had was with Qualcomm, like maybe we can go further on that. And we really want to build this embedded use case scenario that works in the car really well. So we had this demonstration in Mobile World Congress. Ultimately, the deal didn't get signed. And same with Tesla. We worked very hard with Tesla for so many years, and so many of my engineers don't like the end result at the end, but they like the final result that they got at the end, but not the Tesla result. So because we showed, so Andrew, who's my engineering manager, and I think Mo and Samir, you guys were kind of showing the demo in Mobile World Congress, and the Qualcomm CEO saw it. Then the Microsoft Ventures guy, Nagraj, he saw it, and then he asked me to come present to the CEO of Microsoft. I'm like, he's like, do you want to go? I'm like, for sure. And then, so I then presented to this is like March last year, and at first, and they liked our technology, what we're doing, and it resulted in an acquisition. There's a long story for that, but the point over here is you don't build a company to be acquired. You build a company to build the best value you can. And partnerships with big companies is one of the ways we always wanted to do with Samsung, LG, BlackBerry, all that, to get as much distribution, to get as much data, and to build stronger algorithms. That's what our focus was.
So could you talk about the acquisition? I have to pay homage to the title of the talk a little bit. So talk a little bit about the acquisition and that process and how that partnership came about.
Yeah, and I know that Mo is gonna hate me for this, but that's fine. So March we met Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, thanks to the demo that Andrew did in Mobile World Congress with Samir. And Samir was at Qualcomm back then, not at Microsoft. And then they got obviously very excited in our technology. And then we're also trying to raise money at the same time. And this time, we're gonna raise around more than $50 million US. And for 5 years, I've been kicked out by Silicon Valley trying to raise money, and I've been rejected by hundreds of investors over 5 years. So we crafted our story, we built our relationships, and actually in August of last year, we were like, hey, is Microsoft interested? Are they not interested? We don't know. And then that's the first time in my life I kind of went through a nervous breakdown So for 3 days, I just started like crying. Like I never cry. I don't give two shits about anything in life. But anyways, that's how I am. But I broke down that why am I working so hard for so many years? What am I doing? And then my colleagues that were trying to cool me down, they're like, and then I called my parents, they're like, come back to India, we don't care. You want to run a company, you want to do it, just stay with us. Like, we don't want your health to suffer. And so I went to India for 2 weeks, beginning of September. And then I came back, and then everything just turned around. We got a term sheet for 30 million from a big investor. We got a term sheet for 18 million. We got a number of term sheets. And at the same time, Microsoft wanted to acquire us as well. So we got a term sheet from Microsoft as well. And then we had to go to Silicon Valley and hustle with other potential, sorry you're at Microsoft now, but other potential buyers as well. And we talked to all of Microsoft's friends and then tried to raise the value high. And then the investors were, again, not happy and stuff. But anyways, and Mo and Brian is a board member, they both wanted to build the $1 billion company. And at the end, and they're pretty persistent, and I really admire that. And we kind of agreed at the end to a middle ground, and maybe Brian, you can talk about that. But that's how it started. And then November last year, we went through the due diligence. We signed an LOI. Even that was hell. But anyway, it's a long process. Acquisitions are not that easy. And remember, 1 in 10,000 companies get to where we got, if you do the math and everything, statistics. So it's not that easy to sell a company for X price to company Y. So that's the kind of high-level gist of the...
Yeah, so if I add a few things related to Sam's comments. So I did really wanted to build a $1 billion company, and then there was a big debate between management, founders, and then shareholders until actually the exit happened. So, but it was a high-quality problem when we actually had a few options, and then the option that I was proposing was like $1 billion, sort of the growing the company, which was not really on the table at that point. And then the exit that we had, everyone was happy. In fact, the investment that we did, when I did at Samsung, for Samsung Ventures, this is the biggest multiple return on investment in their history. So this was a good one. Thing that I wanted to share with you and then also with Sam is that, I didn't actually realize they actually cried over these things for in August. You didn't tell me that, but that kind of tells you how emotional, sort of he is attached to this deal. This is sort of his kind of sort of the make or break kind of sort of this is everything that I give to these ventures. As an investor, pretty much when I evaluate deals, technology plays, the product plays a lot, but ultimately it's the people, it's the management or the founders. We looked at them, we spent enough time with them, and then see, these guys really are committed to this, have the visions to make this one happen through thick and thin. And the buyers, Microsoft, whoever that might be, they basically do the same thing. Unless this is a late stage deals where I can see the revenues and profits and then multiply by certain numbers to come to a valuation. Vast majority of startups starting the company at the CE or Series A, you're not there. You basically have the presentation, have some ideas, and maybe some functions you can demonstrate. People are not going to evaluate based on, your revenue plans and whatnot. It's basically you're looking at the people, how committed, they have the right stories, right teams, are they going to stick together? One of the things, we have a couple of the Maluuba guys, Mo, and then a few I see them. They stay through thick and thin. I mean, we talked about Sam's salary. Everybody basically just, stayed at the work, at night and having breakfast through the dinners in the office to make this one happen. Those are the things the investors and then buyers looking at. I can attest that I bet on early career of my life. I bet on a lot of technologies. So many, more than half of them actually failed. But when I actually, and it's just not me, you can probably talk to a lot of other VCs. When they actually bet on people, the success rate is a lot higher. So that's what I can probably share, and then I can sort of suggest to you guys. Really plan on what you want to do. Give a lot of thoughts about it, and then it's understandable. First-time entrepreneurs, you'll be missing a lot of other things, operationals, how you structure deals, business execution, biz deps, and whatnot. Try to understand what you don't know, and then those missing holes, get the advice from others. Once you have that, and then you show the visions, show your commitment, I suppose a lot of good things will happen.
Samir, are there other lessons you want to draw out?
Yeah, I think to your original point where, and looking at this now both from the investor perspective, but previously from the business development partnership perspective from big companies, the idea that, hey, you're a startup, be very wary of working with big companies because there is an impedance mismatch. They have, there's a lot of bureaucracy. The decisions take a long time. They're kind of, they're not running out of money, at least in most cases. And you're a scrappy little startup. You want to basically, you're nimble, you're fast, but you're also hungry. So why work with big companies? And I think this is an area where if you look at how Sam worked with Qualcomm, and it was both CES and Mobile World Congress, you have to think about, well, what is the value that you can get in the near term? Even if the ultimate partnership does not get consummated, if the big company is able to offer you the PR presence that they bring to the table, the scale that they bring to the table, the visibility that they bring to the table. For example, Sam's demonstration at CES with Qualcomm was in the Maserati, in the large automotive pavilion that Qualcomm was hosting, which all of the other automakers, other auto ecosystem players are going to come by and look at. That is what big companies can help you with. And so you have to think selfishly, okay, what can I do with a big player that's going to help me in the near term get more exposure and allow it to open more doors for other business opportunities, like getting acquired by Microsoft, but it could also be other business partnerships that could happen because now you have the validation that a big company, an established player, has faith in you to actually say, hey, we're going to do something with you, because it is their reputation that's at stake as well. Because if that demonstration or that thing that you're doing doesn't go well, it will reflect poorly on them. So think about it in that way, and if you can find opportunities to work with big players to capitalize on that, it can pay dividends in ways that may not be entirely obvious up front.
Awesome. And Sam, I'm going to need a microphone. Talk to us about some of the other lessons that you've learned through this process. Is there anything that you would do differently now, looking back?
Like running the startup or selling the company?
It is being recorded, so I'm going to just mention that, but you go ahead and answer honestly.
So my principle in life is probably different than others, so I don't know about others, but I live a life with no regrets. I do whatever the hell I want to do. So maybe more experience. If I had more experience, I'd do things better. But so in Hindi, there's a saying in India that says, "Suno sabki karo apni," which means listen to everyone, but do your own thing. Do what your heart says is correct, and then you'll never regret it. Failed, it failed. It succeeded, it succeeded. You just always feel you're in full control. And yeah, so but that's my personality, so sorry.
I like the saying. So what are some of the major lessons that we haven't drawn out here that you think would be helpful insights for the founders here?
I think first of all, first principles. Let's go back to first principles. Don't do a startup for the sake of doing a startup. Do a startup if you really believe in something. I think that's the first thing. There's going to be lots of sacrifices, and you have to be fully selfless for this. At least that's my style of running a startup. I'm fully selfless, and this is my be-all and all for me. So that's one thing, because if there's no sacrifice, how are you going to be 1 in 10,000? That is the question I ask. For every 10,000 companies, there's one that succeeds like Maluuba. Perseverance and patience, super important. You have to be patient. We're patient for 5.5 years till this. And Mo and Brian want to be patient for 5.5 more years to take it IPO and stuff. So
more like 2 years, not 5 years.
So that's an important trait. And I think the most important trait out of all the things I talked about is build a team that believes in the idea and the vision. They have to be unwavering in good times and bad times. And it might sound simple, but you have to really build this team who really goes through the bad times. Good times, everyone can go through the good times. Everyone can party, have drinks. No, but going through the bad times, they're your real buddies. So that's what basic principles maybe for me is the things I learned.
I mentioned about this first-time entrepreneur doing the startup for the first time. There is a merit to it because if you are really a believer, you have the right visions, and you really you're willing to persuade. And there are the things that the particular things that some VCs find it interesting versus, startups. The seasoned entrepreneurs who have done this a few times because they went through a lot of these ups and downs, and then they try to calculate the risk, and then that sometimes works against you. There's things that I heard from somebody else. The airborne parachute jumpers, the highest injury rate happens in the second jump, not the first jump. The first jump, because you have this all adrenaline pumping up, you don't know what it is like. Actually, your injury is less than the second jump that you do. And that's the advantage that I'm talking about. As a first-time entrepreneur, I guess some of you guys are. You don't know what you're gonna confront down the road. That actually sometimes works as an advantage for you guys. So.
So I guess I'll focus this on if you think about if you're building a startup and you are your core belief is you're building a machine learning startup or an AI startup or natural language understanding startup, is thinking about you're in one of two categories. At least that's how I look at it from an investor perspective. You're either a vertical startup, you're solving a business problem, and AI is just a tool. So you're not an AI startup. AI is just another tool. Maybe it's a better tool. So it's really about how well are you solving the business problem, and what is your path to market? Do you have a real business, and can you do it better than others? And I think, to be very honest, the vast majority of startups that are using AI are going to fall in that bucket. There are going to be this rare bird exceptions that are innovating in AI, innovating in machine learning, and they're really, to Brian's point, you're looking at what is the team that's been built. Where are do you have the high pedigree research talent? Where are they coming from? What are their accomplishments? Are you competing in the right competitions? Are you publishing papers? Because you're measuring the capabilities of the team. And yes, that can be very attractive, as we've seen, to acquirers like Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google. And so, but those are going to be rarer and rarer moving forward, and the vast majority are going to fall in the first bucket. So if you're thinking about machine learning and AI and you're starting a company, you should really think clearly up front which of these two buckets you're going to fall into.
As Sam gets ready to add something, I'm going to throw it to the audience just after this. So if you have a question, just put your hand up, and presumably there is a mic runner somewhere. And if not, I will act as one. Great. I might be running out awkwardly to you.
One thing I want to add is, again, general principles, because you guys are specialized in your area, so I don't like to give specific, but general principles is that do the right thing. And what that means is, for example, from 2011 to 2015, I worked 80 to 100 hours a week throughout, but I used to work in the wrong thing for 80 to 100 hours a week. Like, I really worked on the wrong thing. I didn't figure it out. Then when you're on the bottom low, you really have to critically think, is this the right thing I'm doing? Is this actually going to work in the long run? And then we decided we either go big or go home, and it worked out. So basically, the company we sold was only based out of 1.5 years of work. The 4 years of work before that was, you should discount that. That's the honest answer from my opinion. Yeah, I had a lot of learnings and we had a lot of learnings, but we sold in the 1.5 years of work.
Okay, it's now Price is Right. I'm going to be doing mic tosses.
Well, I'll stand. Hi, my name is Eduardo. I'm one of the co-founders of Marcus 3. And the question that I have is, we've seen a lot of people talking, being very excited about B2B solutions in AI, machine learning. When do you guys think that we're going to see an actual platform or app using machine learning or AI capabilities for the consumer?
I mean, we've already seen some of the deep learning applications in YouTube and in Facebook, and the big companies have already tried to do it in a mass scale. But I think real breakthroughs and research have to come in the next 2-3 years, and then the consumer applications will come after. That's my feeling. But they've already started putting Google and Microsoft and Facebook and big companies. For startups, I think it's going to take, unless you specialize on one particular vertical and do a really good job in that vertical. Yeah, exactly. What do you?
Yeah, so just to build on that, I mean, in terms of consumer applications, right? Whether it's speech recognition on your phone, it's Google Photos for sorting and finding, doing object-based recognition to find photos, language understanding. I mean, all of these experiences are integrated into things you are already doing and making it better. So, and they're targeted at consumers. Now, in terms of a unique new consumer application or user experience powered by AI, I think that's what everyone's looking for. And I think it's going to take some time. And it's not just about AI, it's going to be UX innovation and really how you're able to do wholly new classes of things that either weren't possible or you had not thought of, but AI is powering it, but it's how do you interface with the device or the machine to actually be able to accomplish that.
Next question is over here.
Hi, great answers, great stories. Just a question about how you made ends meet, being the one who's taken the smallest salary out of, I don't know, thousands of startups. You know, what did you do? Were you like living with friends, or, you know, tell us some strategy that we may be able to leverage, please.
So I did live in a closet for quite some time. And then I paid myself the lowest salary, I think, I don't know, 10 or 20 grand a year. We used to have free lunch, dinner, and breakfast in the office so that people work hard all the time, including myself. So I used to eat food there. It's not that I didn't have the option to pay myself higher. I just wanted to be the last man to take the salary or whatever. So I don't know. Just live your dream, live your startup. You'll figure your way out. We don't need. Well, maybe I'm frugal, not now, but before, maybe now as well. Yeah, you basically need somewhere to sleep, you need somewhere to eat, and you need to work. I mean, that was my life, at least. I don't know. Maybe I'm too extreme. Maybe there's a balance, which I'm realizing now that maybe I shouldn't have worked super, super hard in the wrong things. You need to strategize and do the right things.
Next question is right here.
I know what it's like to work on a really dedicated team and sleep at the office and spend your weekends, and you know, when you're really tired at 2 a.m., you still have to code it through, and the entire team sticks by you. You have a lot of heart, and you seem to be very, very dedicated to your company. But my question is, at what point did you decide to get acquired, to let it go? And I'd like Brian to actually chime in on this. Was this a plan in the back of your mind from the get-go? I don't think you could have. You needed an acquisition to profit from this because you already had a valuation and money, and you were going to.
I'd let Brian answer this actually.
So I think this is probably a little bit more specific to Maluuba case, but well, let me take a step back. When I first met Sam, and then when we did Series Seed with Samsung, he was having the vision of having a $200 million round Series A, and then having a $2 billion company, and then I really thought he was nutcase at the time. And then somewhere along the time, I think 2016, 15, it kind of reversed. He's kind of sort of, now going through a lot of these ups and downs. He's a little bit too realistic. I'm starting to see this one can go all the way to $1 billion. So we're having this sort of different side, we're sitting different side of the table and then having this debate, completely different. The Maluuba case, I don't know, maybe you can tell me a little bit. The deep learning space, I think there was one question about sort of some relevant questions here about the vertical specifics. Maluuba was building more or less the horizontal platforms tied to the NLP and NLU in that space. We positioned ourselves competing against Google, Facebook type of guys. And then we sort of starting to see that, unless we really raise $50 million or something, really step on the gas, eventually the technology advantages that we have is going to erode. Because what? Microsoft, Facebook, Google has unlimited capital. We had how many GPUs in our sort of the... we had 20, they had 1,000. Yeah, we had 20. And then I think as soon as we got acquired, Microsoft supplied how many? Thousands of the other GPU cores. That's another story. Yeah. So we actually had to think about this sort of, are we going to be able to position ourselves next 2-3 years and then being able to compete against the big guys. And that was the essence of the debate when we actually decided to go, okay, let's find a home for this one, because the price was right at the end of the day. But that was the case. So I think it's all different case by case, but it's just you have to look at what's the market looks like, and then what is our optimal kind of sort of the exits. So I don't think there is a single answers for that. As long as every one of us made decent sort of return on the investment. So I don't know if this one answered your question.
Yeah, so I would say it goes back to the whole vertical versus horizontal, right? And if you're doing a horizontal AI startup, at some point, if you have a really great team, you've built great software, you are going to ultimately end up competing with the big guys. And so the likely outcome is you're going to be an acquisition target. And the way you're going to get to the next phase of your business is to benefit from the scale that one of these big guys bring, especially because of the data that they are able to bring to the table. Now, at the other side, if you're a vertical and you have some proprietary access to some specialized data sets that are not in the domain of a Facebook or a Microsoft or Google, then you could say, yeah, with more capital, you could go all the way and you could go for an IPO, and we would love to see that as well.
One thing I'd like to add, because I know we're running out of time, and I want to say this, so remember I said Bill Gates was my idol when I started the company. I did end up meeting Bill Gates, in March, and we had a 2-hour meeting, and basically why the hell did they pay so much money to buy us? But it was done at that point. But me and my co-founder did end up meeting Bill Gates, and it was like, that's the satisfaction, the little satisfaction you get. I worked so hard for so long, which was worth something, so. Just wanted to add that.
Just one more thing, I forgot to mention this one. So, do you want to get acquired? Do you want to have a great exit? At the end of the day, we all say, investors say, the startups saying that we're going to build a big company, but the reality is 90% of the time you get acquired. That's the typical exits. So from the buyer's perspective, another sort of the aspect that you want to see is that, if you acquire this one, can we integrate this company into the main platform? And then the key members, are they going to stick around? Or, like a lot of startups, including some of the exits that I had, 3 months after the acquisition, everybody flees. And then it's like exodus, right? So that was, I think, one of the things that Microsoft considered. And then in general, I think it is a very nice marriage, relatively speaking. Everyone is happy. Microsoft is happy. I think Sam and the company is quite happy as well.
Yeah, so far so good.
It's an unbelievable story, and there's a ton of great insights for all of us. Please join me in thanking our panel.